It looks like former Georgia safety, now NFL player, newly selected first round pick, Lewis Cine, made some comments on the Richard Sherman podcast that is probably not a secret to you guys because I know how much you guys care about Georgia football, but maybe something that not everyone knows about. He made a comment about comparing practice to game, something we talked a little bit about last season, and we know Richard Sherman likes to chat. Well, he got Lewis Cine to chat on his he got the first round pick to come and talk to him on his podcast, and he had a pretty harsh comment about practice and games in the SEC and at Georgia that I think some of us knew already. Before I tell you what that is, Ryan Curley from Dog Post here. Got to plug the book, DAWGSTRUCTION. If you want the insider story of what happened last year in Georgia winning the national championship, there's no better place than to look at it at DAWGSTRUCTION. Father's Day is coming up. This is a great book for your father. This is a great Father's Day present. Make sure you're checking that out. What did Lewis Cine say on the Richard Sherman podcast? Practices were harder than the games. Very simple, very cut and dry. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words right there. 6 simple but powerful words. And that's why Georgia was so good last year. Because they were going so hard in practice. They did a really good job. Kirby and them, and as someone who gets to be at some of those practices for a little bit and I get to see it at close hand, they do work really hard. It's intense. It's a battle, and you're playing the best every day, right? If Georgia's one of the 2 or 3 best programs in college football, you're playing against the best guys in practice every day, and you're preparing yourself for competition by working against your counterparts, your 5-star, your 4-star counterparts, and that makes it easier when you go to play teams that, guess what, for the most part, are not as good as Georgia is. So this is a comment that I think that we kind of knew this, right? They talked about this. I can't remember who it was that said it, but someone else said this back in October, November, something like that, that the way that they prepare and practice makes the games easier. And something that you get from a lot of people that went to Georgia, Alabama, LSU, these other SEC schools, they talk about how the SEC is hard, and that's because of the way that they're preparing on a daily basis. And sometimes it might have been Tua Tagovailoa is one of those guys that made a comment like this recently, a former Alabama quarterback, talking about how I thought the NFL was going to be harder than it is, because they played at Alabama, they played at Georgia. They know what it's like to get coached by the best and go up against the best every day. And why do you think Georgia was so dominant last year? Because they worked their asses off in practice on a daily basis, and they were really good, and they had the talent to do so, and they had the coaching to do so. Lewis Cine. Did anyone really think Lewis Cine was going to be a first-round pick? I didn't. I thought that he was definitely a draft pick, but I didn't think he was going to be a first-round pick. But you work really hard in practice. You become a leader. You go out there and you perform on the field with the rest of those guys, and you turn into a first-round pick. It all starts it's the little stuff. It's little stuff in practice. Are you giving the extra energy on that last rep? Are you skipping workouts? Are you showing up early? Are you leaving late? How long are you there? How hard are you going on a daily basis? Well, the Georgia Bulldogs took that to the max, and they went extremely hard. So I don't think that this is a surprise at all. But Lewis, and if you've ever talked to Lewis Cine or listened to him talk, very intellectual guy, very thinks about what he's going to say. So he didn't just say this coming out of nowhere. He didn't just pull this out of nowhere. This is something that he's thought about. I like to call Lewis Cine a philosophical guy. I always felt like he was talking to us really down to earth, really getting inside your head. And so Lewis Cine saying that practices are harder than the games at Georgia, I think that's definitely has a lot of truth to it. And honestly, I don't know if Kirby Smart will ever come out and say that, but the Georgia Bulldogs go really hard in practice. And something that I'm not making this speculation. I want to start with that. I'm not making this speculation, but people, they go so hard that people got concerned. Why are so many people getting hurt in practice? Well, they're working really hard, and injuries happen in football. And is that part of it? Yeah. But Georgia dominated last year. All right, that's why we called this book DAWGSTRUCTION, because they destroyed everybody they played, which is true. They beat everybody they played. Obviously, they lost to Alabama, but they got revenge. So they beat all 14 opponents that they played last season. They went 14-1. And that is because of how hard they work in practice. Obviously, it's about a lot of things. It's about do you have the talent? Do you guys have the chemistry? Do you have the coaching? Are you doing the little stuff? But it comes down to practice, how important that is in sports. And Georgia football practices and SEC football practices are intense, and they're long, and they're exhausting. And I think an interesting note is these guys also have to deal with school and their social lives. And in the NFL, it's your profession, and you have practice, you have games, that's your job, and that's kind of it. But you have that as a student. You have to do your schoolwork. I know some of them may not do their schoolwork, but a lot of them do, and they have a lot of things to deal with. They have the stresses of what's the next step in life, and then you have Kirby Smart yelling at you in your face after you get done with class, and it's a stressful thing. And I know that they go hard. I've seen it firsthand, and that's why Georgia was so good this last year, and that's why they're going to continue to be good under this regime. Lewis Cine said it. Practices were harder than the games. I obviously don't participate in the practices and the games, but I kind of agree with him, and I think that has a lot to do with Georgia's success, and it will have a lot to do with their success going forward. Are you doing the little things, and what are you doing to prepare yourself for the next game? They're working harder than they have to it on the field. My take, DAWGSTRUCTION down below. Make sure you're going to dogpost.com. All your insider info year-round. Thanks.